Alright, so I noticed some things in this video that I didn't really notice before, but I looked at it more closely and, I kind of believed Choof before for the most part, that everything was legit, and that that some of his turns were just like frame skipping, but I don't really believe that anymore. And I'll show you why. So his main argument in this comment that he's using is the frame skipping, and he even gives examples. So at 124, for the 141 example is less good. The 124 example is the best one, but it looks pretty much the same in the other example too, where you can tell that on every like tick, it's frame skipping. Like it's happening on every tick. It's happening like for the whole turn. Like there's no inconsistency with it at all. It's happening on like every tick. Like you could tell that every time that I'm going forward, there's one frame of movement and then the next frame nothing. And then movement, nothing. Movement, nothing. Movement. Okay, oops. The YouTube frame skipping is a little inconsistent, but it's... Never mind, he stopped turning. That's why. But okay, it's always like even on like a turn where he fails. Hold on. It's like movement, nothing. Movement, nothing. Oh, never mind. YouTube. But most of the time, it's like he moves, and then there's nothing, and then he moves, and then there's nothing, and he moves, and then there's nothing, right? And it's like consistent, roughly. Maybe here is better. Even here, like... right there at the end, right? It's happening like multiple times in a row, where there's a movement, and then no movement, and then movement, and then no movement. It's not happening every time. I think the reason for that is just YouTube frame skipping is janky. But anyway. So I'm going to go to this first one that I want to talk... This is the main one that I want to talk about. Because a lot of people might say, well, this is just frame skipping again at the beginning there. Right? It's just frame skipping. The problem that I have with that is that even if you ignore the frame skipping, the turn just sort of like speeds up all of a sudden and then like instantly slows down again. So I'll show you what I mean. So he's smooth turning sort of slowly at the beginning, like really slowly. But then look at that snap right there. Like what the hell is that? Right? Like and then there's like so there's that snap right there, which by the way happens in like basically a single frame, maybe 2 frames, and then there's a little bit of nothing, and then he just starts turning normally again. And so we already know that when the frame skipping is happening, that's when you get the sort of 1 frame of movement like that, and then 1 frame of nothing. The problem is that that's the only time that it happens in the entire turn. Because you can even look at this turn right here, which it might also happen here. I haven't checked. It happens there, I guess, once. But also, it's weird that it only happens once. That's completely different from the other examples he gave, right? But we can ignore that, right? We can even ignore the frame skipping, right? We can say, well, okay, maybe that actually is happening to his mouse. Some mouses are like that. Even though the examples he showed before look way more like an actual like hardware issue. This doesn't really look like a hardware issue. This looks more like a macro than a hardware issue. But I'm gonna ignore that, right? I'm just gonna ignore that. Even ignoring the like weird like single frames of no movement, because who knows, maybe that is a hardware issue. Even then, you wouldn't just get movement here and then all of a sudden a snap like that on the very next frame. and then back to normal, back to like a normal turning speed. So there's just that one frame of a sudden snap, and then his turn goes back to exactly what it was before, pretty much. Maybe a little bit faster, but not much faster, right? You know, if we compare, like how slow his turn is here, then the snap, and then this, right? And then also what I noticed is that at the end, there's that weird like turn at the end, which is basically also a snap, but it's a slightly smoother one, but it's a really weird one. Like, why would, I don't know why you would, at slow speed, maybe it doesn't look too bad, but at normal speed, it doesn't look right. It really does not look right at all. It does not, especially compared to his other turns around the same time. Like, even fucking 1BMM doesn't turn like that, you know? I've never seen anyone turn like that. Like, no matter how fucked up their mouse was, I've never seen a turn like this. Right, this like weird snap at the end doesn't seem normal. And it's not a frame skip, right? It's not a frame skip because it's a completely smooth snap. I can also go frame by frame to prove that there's no frame skipping. It's just but then all of a sudden there his turn speeds up for just a few frames and then it stops. There's just that bam, there's just that tiny amount of time where his turn suddenly speeds up and then just abruptly stops. Right? Like his turn speeds up right at the end and then abruptly stops. Like no one turns like that, right? And then, anyway, maybe he does. It's a weird ass turn. Anyway, so that turn doesn't fucking look right at all. Even if you ignore the frame skipping, it still doesn't look legit, right? And then you also have this, which I'm just going to talk about briefly, because this one I think looks even worse, but I feel like is more likely to be somehow explained by frame skipping. But it doesn't really make sense to me. I'm not really convinced that this one is frame skipping either, because the frame skipping in this one only happens on the first 2 ticks, which just so happen to be, so it happens on the jump angle, right? So you have that. So 2 frames, bam, he's there. And also on the frame in between, he is almost perfectly in the middle of the 2 angles. It's 103 and like 0.4 almost, and then in the middle he's pretty much exactly 50, which is like almost exactly in the middle. But anyway, that's besides the point. But then after that, there's this 1 frame of nothing again, which you would expect from a frame skip. And then that, I don't know if I really have to say anything about this. And then another frame of nothing, right after that suspicious turn, right? Because this is extremely suspicious, and it just so happens that right after the suspicious turn, there's another frame of nothing, which you would expect from a macro. You would expect if a turn was macro that right after it there would be like a frame of nothing. And it happens for both of these turns. And then after that, it's a completely normal turn all of a sudden. No frame skips at all for the whole thing after that. And then there he stops turning. Right? So why is the frame skip only happening right after the jump angle, which is, by the way, he got perfect jump angle, which is fine, but the fact that right after that there's a frame skip, and then also right after that, which is also extremely suspicious. I don't know if this is a perfect angle, but I think it's close. I think this is very close to perfect, at least. And then right after that, there's another frame skip. So on the 2 ticks that are suspicious, that are the most suspicious, that's where like there's a frame of nothing after, which you would expect from a macro, and then the rest of the turn is completely normal. Anyway, I'm about to reach 10 minutes, so the recording is about to end. That's pretty much all I had to say anyway.